Good morning, church.
Good morning.
Did you hear? I don't think this is when Jesus was around, but there was a shepherd tending his flock in a remote pasture when a BMW, a red one, appears. And the driver is a young man with an Amari suit on and very fancy shoes and sunglasses. He sticks his head out of the window and says, "Hey, if I can tell you how many sheep you have in your flock, will you give me one?" The shepherd looks at him and agrees. The driver plugs his cell phone into the laptop and connects it to the GPS and starts a remote body heat scan of the area. During the process, he sends some emails. After receiving answers, he prints a 100-page report on a portable printer in his glove compartment and proudly announces, "You have 1,478 sheep." And the shepherd said, "Wow, impressive. You can have one of my sheep." So he observes the man pick up an animal and load it in his car, and then the shepherd says, "If I can tell you exactly what your business is, will you give me my dog back?" That's the only one joke I found that I could do in church. It's been answering week. I want to ask you some questions about the week. This will go real quick, but I like your answers very quickly, okay? What color came to mind as you thought about this week?
Orange.
Orange?
Yeah.
Red. Any others? Oh, good. No one said dark colors. That's great. What sound or emotion did you see or feel during this week relative to Milwaukee and the world?
Stress.
Pardon?
Stress.
Sadness?
Beer.
Helicopter.
I went to a friend came to the art show Saturday, and she said that she couldn't sleep because it was obviously the echo of the helicopter hit everybody in town. So, okay, what's one thing that you remember from this week? Some concrete, something that happened either in Milwaukee, either here at the village or in your life.
I remember at the job something I
All right,
used my debit card for. I don't remember that.
great, okay, yeah.
I remember us gathering the village or having work for the chief.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Good, yeah.
A man was shot.
Yes, a man was shot.
There was a truck parked down here, the digital billboard that says, "I will fight the left."
Okay. And there are a number of trucks that were pro-Republican and then the other side, so we kept waiting for the other side truck to come by. Any other things? Yes.
The Trump Bible that has the Constitution within the Bible.
I'm sorry, I can't blow out my phone, and there's also a nuclear new shoes that came out this week. They're called the assassination shoes.
Oh, no.
$200.
I came here every night and brought my dog along and we took walks and I was surprised at how many people just for comfort and me and took that to the dog.
I was away from all of this in the wilderness, remote camping. I had a cabin.
That was me too.
And it was coming back and looking at all of the news. It's just really interesting to see the pictures that people picked as the pictures for the
Well, I'm prejudiced. We had a really nice art this weekend. Of course, it's my stepson's art, so that's good. I'm not very subjective about that.
Sometimes we were like, I had some nice conversations with some people.
Yeah. Yeah, we had one man from Maryland come in, I think, one night. Well, thank you. good for us to talk about this, you know. We all have our own individual thing, but it's also good for us to share together. It's healing. And Lord knows we need some healing these days. Come away to a deserted place all by yourselves and rest a while. It was really hard for Jesus and his bunch to get a break. It's the presence and the mission that kept imploding around them all the time. And I think sometimes we feel that way about our family, our relationships, our congregation. I know Pastor must sometimes wonder, you know, when this week particularly, she was here from almost 9 to 9, or well, beyond that sometimes. You know, it really, you wonder, when are you going to get a break? Even when you're retired. Sometimes you wonder, when will I get a break? And of course, we're missing the most significant event, the feeding of the 5,000, but I will tell you, if you're excited about that, it's coming up next week. In a different book of the Bible. That's kind of interesting. I spent some time yesterday watching a documentary about Tibetan Buddhist nuns who spend their entire life in practice. When they laugh, when they play, when they work, when they pray, when they chant, when they sleep even, I think, they're saying mantras. They're continuously, you'll notice they have their beads. Sometimes even Sikhs the same way, and I've noticed even some people who follow Islam will have beads in their hands. I'm sometimes a little bit embarrassed by how we tend to stay away from that kind of thing. But when I was invited to become part of the Buddhist community in Syracuse, that's the one word that I learned that I had not learned as a child, the word practice. I did in football and basketball, but not in Christianity. I didn't practice my faith, I believed my faith. Here and here. And so, in watching this movie yesterday, it was really kind of relaxing to see the pictures of a woman who had supposedly been enlightened. She was 100 and some years old. And she was still teaching, still helping the younger ladies and those of us watching and the visiting people from Europe and America that were there. The practice of our faith. And I think that's what Jesus is talking about. When we talk about taking a break in the Western world, I sometimes wonder what we mean by that. Maybe you'll go off in the corner and look at your phone. Huh? I was shocked one week that how many hours I had spent on my phone. I have a reporter on my phone that tells me every week. And so this week I'm going to try to stay away from my phone. Because it really is terrible, isn't it? I mean, I get on TikTok, I can't get off. I love the WNBA, and they have a lot of stuff on there about that, so it keeps me going. But when we talk about our congregation in this last week, my mind didn't go to meditation as much as I thought it would. But it went to, what kind of a congregation are we? I remember a fellow pastor, a friend of mine in Syracuse, New York. I was not at a church then. I was part of an interfaith organization. But he would come to visit me in my office, and he would take off his sandals. He wore sandals all year round, I think. I'm not sure. And there's a lot of snow up where we were, so I don't know how he handled that. But he would take off his sandals and come into my office and sit down. And I have to tell you that, and I might be a little cynical now, I often felt that I had to pray. And then I visited his congregation. Now that you think we got wild art. He was a follower of St. Francis. And so the altar was a large statue of St. Francis, water, animals around. The whole milieu was one of silence. And when I walked in the congregation, usually it's, like it is here before the piano starts playing. It was quiet. The style of that congregation was almost like you're on a retreat. Now, they sang well, they were full of life, but there was a sense of meditation there that I had never experienced in a congregation before. And so I thought of a chart, my friend. We have all this crap about Christian nationalism and all that stuff coming up now. We have to be careful. I would highly recommend that you Google ELCA on YouTube and find the most recent 5-minute talk by our Bishop Elizabeth on Christian nationalism. It's one of the best. It's short, it's sweet, and it's very much to the point. And what scares me is she certainly indicates that Christian nationalism and Zionism has now entered the ELCA. My friend made a chart one time about being the people of God in our times. And see what you think of it, because I think this is something we've been talking about in the last few months in our conversations about finance and about our future and so forth. Primary orientation of these congregations might be saving place, where you are committed to Jesus, period. That's not all of it, but you get what I mean. Then there's a caring place, where we minister to personal needs, personal fulfillment. We order personal chaos. We're a dispenser of care and hugs. Now, you see, some of these we're part of all of this, but he's talking about congregations that's all they are. And then there's the changing place. Well, you might put village in there, but be careful. We're going to free the oppressed, empower the oppressed, liberal change. We're a guerrilla army with many agendas. Now that is kind of like us in some ways, but that's not all we are. If I were choosing a church, that's where I would go. The kingdom community, and that's a ministry of hope. Everything's hope, 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 hope. I have a problem with that sometimes. But then there's what I would consider what village is for me. A strategy congregation. We decide to do something, we make a plan, and more often than not, we do it. This last week, folks, was extraordinary, and I didn't get to hug one Republican. I hugged a couple of these folks, but I didn't get to hug a Republican. Yeah. I did have a visit from a group that doesn't like our church, but they were very loud and boisterous and stayed outside, so I was very happy because Pastor left me here all alone. And then all of a sudden I heard these people swearing at me, and I thought, oh, you're going to hell, and all this stuff. And I thought, well, I think I'll just be calm. And they went away. But we had so many wonderful interchanges with people. And I want to tell you something that really is hard to understand sometimes. And that is, when you're a strategy congregation, you participate in building the community. You don't tell the community what to do. You're walking and learning. That's very important. And listening. Oh, I've become a much better listener here at Village than I think I've ever been. We're a ministry of believers who are walking with a community in transformation. And so, as we think about the quiet place, no phone, TV, internet, computer, chatter, kids, player, no prayer. When we talk about being quiet, I'm not talking about sitting and praying. I'm talking about just being quiet. You notice Jesus didn't ask him, "You be quiet and pray." No, he just said, "You guys need to pray." Well, I want to tell you that you probably can't hear the voice because you don't have hearing aids like I do. I can't hear my wife, though. That's the problem. That's the real problem. But we just need to be quiet. And so I thought we would practice just a few minutes here this morning. Would everybody please put their feet on the ground? Sit up or be comfortable. By the way, if you sit a long time and you slouch, good luck. You're going to be seeing a back doctor pretty quickly. Now I'm going to just give you the instructions briefly before we start. Don't look at any one thing. And if you're having trouble with a rapid mind, maybe you want to count your breath, or just let go. Take a deep breath. Thank you. When I was meditating with my inmates for about 13 years in the prisons of Wisconsin, on behalf of the Milwaukee Zen Center, I saw men change. And they didn't become Buddhist. Well, a few did. But that only lasted as long as they were in prison, I think. But men changed because they learned how to sit with themselves. Their families had kicked them out. Their church had often kicked them out. Their wife had sometimes left them. Not always, most of the time. But they began to figure out how to be at peace with themselves. Just remember, we might be really active, but also at the same time not be at peace with ourselves. I think we need both to really be good witnesses for justice. I have a friend who laid in the jungles of Vietnam for 5 days before they could get him out. He's really against the church for some reason. Well, I know why. Same reason I am sometimes. But he told me one day, and I think he said it before he caught himself. He told me, Bob, I recited the 23rd Psalm. I'll never forget that. Why don't we look on our bulletin and read together the 23rd Psalm? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Lord makes me lay down in green pastures and leads me beside the still waters. You restore my soul, O Lord, and guide me along the right pathways for your name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Let everyone say amen. Amen.